Today I'm letting a website select a random roller coaster from anywhere in the world for me to recreate one-to-one. That means it could pick a record-breaking AAA coaster, a cult classic fan favorite, or a tiny, obscure, tucked-away roller coaster in the middle of nowhere on the other side of the world that you've never heard of. And with little to no rules, whatever the website gives me, I have to build to the best of my ability. Let's take our chances and let's see what Rollercoaster Database chooses for today's challenge recreation. Hello everyone, welcome back to TH Designs. Today we are coming back with a video type that we did maybe a month or two ago, and that is the little mini recreation series of Rollercoaster Database choosing our inspiration, our subject. Last time we had a pretty obscure random kind of traveling fair Chinese coaster. I think the name of the coaster was straight up just roller coaster, and it was by a manufacturer that's not in the game. It was pretty obscure, had a lot of really different unique challenges that was very fun. If you've not seen the first video, go ahead and check it out. Today we are doing the, second installation to this little mini series, if you want to call it, where in essence we just let a website choose whatever we build, and we have to do it to the best of our ability to recreate it one-to-one perfectly. That website that I keep referring to is RCDB, as you see up here. Of course, that stands for Rollercoaster Database, and as I said in the first episode, this is literally just a hub of everything roller coasters and theme parks. I mean, quite literally anything is here. 13,000 roller coasters, both defunct and still operating, are on this page. Speaking of, if we only use the existing coasters, there's 6,700, which that is the first constraint that we have. It has to be an existing coaster. It also cannot be a kiddie ride, as you kind of see here with this little Zamperla, and it also cannot be a mountain coaster. That's just because those two are just, to be truthful, not that interesting, and there's so many. They are so abundant. The odds of me clicking on this and getting one of those, actually that's a pretty good one, I know that one, they're pretty high. So anyway, those are the little rules that we have. Otherwise, out of the 6,700 coasters here literally across the world, let's randomize and let's see what coaster we're gonna get. If we click this button up here, it'll give us a random one. So unfortunately we didn't get Scooby-Doo. Let's see what today's video is going to revolve around. A mountain coaster. There you go. I was just talking about that, so yeah, this can't happen. But this is a great example to what I was just talking about. Let's try again. Whoa. An S&S coaster. That's a manufacturer that I know. Another Chinese coaster, which isn't that surprising. I think China is actually #1 with the most roller coasters in the world. 83 miles per hour, a height of almost 200 feet, 4.5 G-forces. It's standing and operating, but for the sake of today's video, we'll run with it. This looks very interesting. S&S Worldwide is a famous manufacturer. If we click on the name here, which by the way, the name is OCT Thrust SSC 1000. What? Anyway, just gonna click on it. Okay, that's not the same ride. Is this a launch coaster? No, it says a height of 200 feet, drop of 221. Compressed air, no, it is a launch coaster. What is going on? Anyway, if you click on the name, you get all the little details here. It's at Happy Valley in China. Like I said, standing and operating since 2023. So it's actually been quite a second since this ride's operated. It operated from 2014 to 2023. If we click down here, we get some photos of the ride. It looks pretty interesting. It looks pretty cool, actually. This looks like an awesome layout. This is much better than the last one, I think. I mean, like, look at this layout. This is pretty good stuff. It's a pretty thrilling coaster, especially compared to some of the alternatives that we could have got. There you see it has that red track again. Yeah, so I guess they either painted it red. You can see this photo's from 2013. Maybe the white. Yeah, the white ones are from 2021. So this coaster is currently white and blue. Let me see if I can find a POV of it. But this looks pretty solid. I can't really tell what, model that is, but we do have like a Ferrari type of train in the game, so we can definitely make this work, I think. Okay, it looks like we do have one from Theme Park Review. Bullet Roller Coaster POV. So I guess the name of the coaster isn't actually Thrust SSC 1000 or whatever this piece of jargon is. If we take a look at this POV, it's 1:39 minutes, so not the longest layout in the world. That is very loud, sorry. Here's our ride. You can see it looks like a hydraulic launch. 200 feet in the air, so this is pretty impressive numbers. I'm guessing it's that little top hat there. If the launch would just get going, that would be nice. Love that alarm. This must be a pretty rapid launch. I mean, that's not the longest runoff. Oh yeah, that's intense. Okay, into a kind of top hat. Goes underground. Okay. into, I don't know what element that would be. Okay. Big helix. This is a very tight circumference or radius helix. No wonder this thing's pulling 4.5 Gs. Okay, it looks like it takes place in a parking garage, so that'll be fun. The scenery part of this won't be very fun. But, like a solid minute layout, this is pretty solid. Let's see if we can find it in Google Earth. Hopefully we can. But the fact that we have a POV and we didn't have a POV last time makes me feel better. Because last time we were just completely rocking off of Google Earth. It says, okay, hold on, okay. This note here is, I completely missed this. This is a mirror image of the bullet coaster at Happy Valley, which is technically a different one. So there's 2 of these, and this is like a sister coaster? Because this is in a completely different district of China. How many Happy Valleys are there? Okay, yeah, it's nowhere near. Okay, I'm starting to think I might have found it. It's this right here. This strip of white coaster. Yeah, there's that big helix. You're not seeing any of those buildings, though, coming out of that launch. There's a lot of trees, which isn't... This is actually the sister coaster. I got it wrong. Bullet coaster, Happy Valley, in Hubei. Let's see where it takes us. Takes us here. Okay, this is promising. This is it. Okay, finally. Jeez. This structure here you can definitely see in the launch in the POV. And I think that this building here, one of these, is that big white building that you see in the POV. This is it. This is definitely it. Okay, so we're not going to be able to build all of this. This is obviously a very elaborate setup, but we'll do what we can. We'll definitely do the coaster, obviously, to the best of our abilities. So let's jump into Planet Coaster and let's actually take a look at maybe what the best model is to start. So it is an SNS model, which is in-game. It's FNF International in Planet Coaster. We have 2 options, one of which is not going to be usable, and that's the El Loco model. Just doesn't really make sense. This model... might make sense. I'll have to take a look at the track type. To be honest, the track type looks a lot more like a Vekoma launch, at least relative to like in-game. So we might rock with that. And if we take a look at the train, it looks like it's very similar to the kind of Ferrari race car dragster type of look. This car looks like it's not too far off what we see in real life, but the track type is a little too thin in my opinion. Well, you can see it has that thicker spine underneath it. Yeah, we're not going to be able to use this model, but we can use that train. If we take this Vekoma sit down, you can see that this track is much thicker and in my opinion it lines up way more with what we're seeing in the pictures. But this jet coaster is not right, so if we change this to the hydraulic dragster cars like so, you can see that that looks pretty close. The only thing is that this has 4 seats per car, and if we look in here, there's 2 per. So maybe we can actually do something a little bit better. So actually, while I'm looking this up, there's actually, there's a really nasty accident on this model. I don't think on this specific one, but at least on this model. Let's actually look into this a little bit. This is pretty interesting. This would explain why it's standing not operating. I found this little article. There's a lot of Reddit threads and Twitter feeds and stuff that talk a lot about this. I wanted to find an article. So thankfully, whatever happened, it doesn't seem like anybody injured was in life-threatening condition, but it looks like 9 people were involved in a collision on this ride because the brake systems failed. Kind of similar to what happens in Rollercoaster Tycoon every once in a while when the brake systems just completely fail and the coaster goes into the station. It looks like this model had a real-life situation of that. So kind of insane that we picked a random coaster out of 6,700 that just in the past few years had a pretty terrible accident. So that explains why this is standing but not operating. Either way, we got a little sidetracked there, but a little bit of lore for this coaster. What I was trying to look up in the first place was some pictures of the trains. So this is not the exact coaster. What is going on here? There are so many strange things happening in this video. Anyway, but it has 4 across seating, kind of very similar to the B&M sit-down lap bar. So maybe we can actually use this train type much more aligned to what we're seeing in real life. So anyway, after all those little hurdles and hiccups and distractions, let's finally get to building this. So thankfully, because we have such a good piece of Google Earth imagery, we can actually do this with billboards. I'll be right back. I'm going to do all this and turn it into a scalable blueprint that we can put on a billboard in-game. And essentially we'll have literally this entire floor plan kind of mapped out. So give me 1 second. Alright, there's our collection of the images. 7 billboards will be needed. And if we jump in game and place those accordingly, this is what we get. So this is a pretty sizable coaster, especially compared to last time. Pretty solid layout. I'm very excited to build this. It's hard to tell what's going on in this building where the station and the brakes are encapsulated. It looks like there's a slight turn, if anything, into the launch, but all these details are going to have to be figured out later. These buildings are going to be a little tough. I'm not sure how exactly we're going to attack that, but it looks like this is parallel with that line there. So let's do a little drive tire turn. So there we go. Now we're kind of lined up nicely. And then we also have a holding launch, which was a pretty lengthy holding launch. So there is going to be a difference that this is going to be an LSM launch, not a hydraulic launch, just because of the nature of the model that we're working with. I would rather have the LSM launch and the track look more like the real life equivalent than the other way around. Either way, holding section there, get some launches going. We have a max speed of 83 miles per hour, that's incredible acceleration, but this is not a family coaster. 4.5 G-forces is very, very intense. Like I said in the POV, this is a really small kind of runoff, takeoff, I guess maybe is a better word. So let's turn this up to 82 is the closest we can get. And the acceleration is going to have to be pretty steep. That's our launch. Now it's pretty much just a matter of making the layout. So I'm probably going to attack this similar to many of our videos, where we're just going to kind of stitch this together segment by segment. And so I'm probably going to do pretty much right after this turnaround here. So let me build the top hat. Let me try my best to get it as height accurate as possible. We know that this is about 200 feet. Everything after that, it's kind of a guess. We know it's a 220 foot drop because you can see it does go underground, which we saw in the POV. So either way, let me build all that. And I assume that by the time we reconvene, we'll probably be about at this point. We'll have to look at the POV and remind ourselves what element this was. I don't remember. But this is a top hat going underground. All right, there's the top hat and this turnaround Immelman rollover camelback. For as many Wheel of Wonders videos that we've done, I'm not super keen on elements. But you can see the coaster going now. The G-forces here must be insane. And even there, truthfully. And the radius on this thing, look how tight that is for this coaster being so fast. The G-forces on this thing are just pretty absurd, to be honest. But I'm pretty sure we have everything right. This is 196 feet, so that's good. This drop is minus 12, so we are at around close to 220 foot drop as we saw on RCDB. We could always just lower it a bit more, but yeah, not too bad. We are right here, which we are in this kind of little valley, which if we look in the POV there, it does look like it might go a little bit subterranean, but really we're just going down underneath some supports and then doing this kind of fake out moment, and then up into this kind of a little bit overbank turn. But at this point the coaster is going pretty slow, and then into the helix, which ultimately just goes into the brake run right after that. These supports are serious head choppers. So to be honest, the rest of the layout is actually much more simple than I thought. It really is kind of just a one-trick pony, more or less, not to kind of take away the intensity of this coaster, but the layout after this first top hat and this turnaround are pretty relaxed, if anything. I'm going to do this fake out moment next, and then this overbank turn, kind of overbank turn, and then the helix, and that's really it. Pretty easy layout. I think the majority of this coaster is going to be spent probably doing the scenery, but let me get working on the rest of the layout, and yeah, I'll see you when this coaster is actually done. Alright, there's the rest of the layout done. It was significantly harder than the first 2 or 3 elements that we had done. It just doesn't feel very proportional looking top down at some of these elements. This looks like a wave turn, right? But if you look in the POV, I mean, it's definitely not. I looked at the G-forces of this coaster. They don't break 5. Like, look at the speed in which it takes this. Like, those G-forces are pretty high, and you can see it's actually even wider than the helix shows in the Google Earth plan. So, yeah, so I haven't taken a look at the stats yet. We'll save that for the end. But the layout is done. It's relatively smooth. The G-forces are a little scary. Other than that, let me quickly do all the coloring on the coaster and the supports, and then we will pretty much be ready to tackle the scenery and pretty much get to summing up this video. Alright, there's the color scheme and all of the supports completely done. You probably noticed the top hat actually has some custom supports, which, if you're familiar with this channel, you know I hate custom supports. I was pretty happy with myself for that. I did bite the bullet, decided that I had to do it, not only to get these really nice head chopper moments with the supports, but it is such a unique structure that if you're trying to capture the essence of the coaster, I feel like this had to be at least one of the custom supports done. For the most part, the rest of the layout is just the regular supports. Some custom supports were done around the helix just because there's so much overlap with some of the track. But yeah, that's the really nice thing about this type of track, is the supports are actually pretty close to what we're seeing in real life. As the train kind of rounds here, you can get a quick glimpse at the color choice there. Got that blue and orange and a little bit of black and white as well, like we see in real life. So I had to still customize those trains, as well as obviously do all of the scenery around this. How crazy I'm going to go with the detail? Probably not too much. This is such an intimate coaster, really interacting with a lot of the path and buildings in this park. So if I really went that hyper into detail, it would probably take me forever. So I'm definitely going to capture the big moments, like the general forms that are happening around the coaster. Just like last time, I will do all that off camera, and I will see you in a bit when all of this is done, and we can talk about the stats. We can talk about all in all how this coaster performed. And then, of course, after all of that, we will do the cinematic and the POV. So I will see you then. I have a lot of work ahead of me. All right, we're back. Everything is completely done with all the scenery around it. Pretty interesting little area, to be honest. There were a lot of really good footage and images of the surrounding areas around this coaster. And it's actually like really well themed. Like, this whole area seems to be like race car kind of themed. With some really interesting buildings and a lot of different really interesting shapes for some of those buildings. I mean, you kind of just see them scattered. A lot of spherical buildings, a lot of rounded buildings. Even this huge, really complicated structure, which just before we start diving into the actual layout, and this is the only blueprint in the entire build, so I wanted to give a quick shout out. This is part of a monorail structure that I just had in my blueprints library, and I thought, why not? It looked pretty much exactly like the building that we see on Google Earth, and it fits really well. So I just kind of tweaked it a little bit, but the general skeleton is from Valachi over here, which, as usual, I will include that in the description in case you are interested in this blueprint yourself. Very, very sweet build, and it was kind of just perfect, so I just figured I would use it. Like I said before I dove into all of this, I didn't want to go too in depth with a lot of the theming and the surroundings, because this is a really developed park, and to be honest, we could have went forever. So I feel like that this was an appropriate amount of theming. It kind of captures the immediate surroundings, especially relative to the POV. To kind of summarize the immediate surroundings, we have this really interesting like crane structure, which I didn't see till like late into the build, but I decided to just kind of throw it in there to kind of give it one additional thing in that little skyline. Speaking of skyline, you probably noticed or heard this very loud flat ride here, this pendulum spin sanity type of ride. It's in this really large plot of path or sidewalk. Across from that, we have this kind of main building with a lot of different like icons on it. In the images, they are race cars, not rocket ships, but it just made sense to kind of fill it in with a lot of this different flaming vehicular stuff. We didn't have any cars, but we did have rocket ships, so I threw some rocket ships and some fire and such. And the building itself, I guess, is some kind of main hub almost, along with some other buildings and pavilions. And then the actual entrance to the ride is happening over here underneath this pavilion, which, speaking of the station, we see that there's a transfer track here, so I assume that this is a maintenance shed. But generally, I didn't give too much love to the interior here. It's mostly a pavilion that's very open. You see all the different pillars and such. Really the main focus of this coaster, because like I said before, otherwise I'd be spending so many hours, so many more hours building all the little details. Really the focus was just making sure that the POV is as close as possible to what we're seeing on YouTube. As the coaster begins to crest that top hat, let's actually take a look at the coaster cars. we had a few photos that kind of captured what the train design looks like. Just basically used the coaster pieces that I think I mentioned before we dove into the scenery part. These pieces here, the F1 cars, the attachments, basically just use those in different areas to kind of capture that F1 car feel, the race car feel that we see in some of the images. We have that forward cross seating as well, thanks to the B&M sit-down forward cross seating train. This underground area looks really nice, even got those chevrons that we see in the POV. But yeah, really happy with how all of that looks. A lot of these head choppers with the supports. All in all, this is really nice stuff. This is way better than the last coaster that we had. This is just way more interesting, definitely much more intense of a ride. Which, speaking of intensity, let's take a look at the stats. I've taken a look at the G-forces, so I know they're not dangerous, necessarily. They're definitely not good. But I do not know what the actual scores are. So, as that reaches the station, we should get a glimpse here. All green, 6.21 excitement, very solid. 4.37 fear, I actually expected it to be a little bit higher. A nausea of over 1, pretty usual stuff there. All green across the board, which is very solid. As for the specifics, it is a 50-second duration, nothing too crazy there. 3,000 feet of track, pretty solid. Max speed of 78, so I guess that launch isn't actually reaching max speed because the max speed is 83 in real life. Average speed of 40, pretty good. Max vertical G-forces of 4.68, so real life it's 4.5, so that's actually really spot on. I thought it was going to be really close to 5. 4.68 definitely isn't comfortable. This is a very intense ride, but relative to trying to create it one-to-one, that's pretty spot on. No inversions, 1 moment of airtime, which I'm guessing is happening probably here at this little switch-up moment. And yeah, that pretty much sums up today's video, today's installation to the RCDB series. If you do want to see more of these, definitely make sure to let me know. I know the first one got a lot of really good reception from those that viewed it, so if you want to continue to see this series go on, do let me know. I love doing these. I love recreating coasters. It's probably my #1 favorite thing to do on this channel. So this series is right down that alley. So do let me know. I really hope you enjoyed this installation. This was a very interesting video, both from the lore of the coaster itself, the actual model itself, the location of the coaster, yet another Chinese coaster, and the actual theming and everything, which was pretty fun, pretty challenging. All those things said, stay tuned for the cinematic and then of course the POV at the very end, and I will see you in the next video. Again, I hope you enjoyed. Take care, everyone.